Hey there, trail trekkers and tall tale seekers. You're tuned in to the 406 Life, the podcast where Montana Max, your Bigfoot buddy and outlaw gear mascot, yeah, that's me, leads you through the wild, weird, and wonderful corners of Montana. Each week we share stories, legends, and laughs from the last best place. So grab your boots and sense of adventure, because we're about to make some Montana-sized memories. This episode's powered by Outlaw Gear, where rebels get their style. Want to look legendary? Mosey over to I'mAnOutlaw.com and claim your outlaw status. Well, howdy there, friends. You're tuned in to the 406 Life. I'm your host, Montana Max, the only Bigfoot who uses scented pine needles for shampoo, so my hair smells like the bitter roots. Trust me, even Sasquatches got hair envy. This is the show where animals don't just roam the woods. They run our towns, steal our whiskey, and sometimes even run for office. Today, I'm serving up the first of our two-part deep dive into Big Sky Country's wildest animal stories. So pour yourself a cup of cowboy coffee, or huckleberry tea if you're feeling fancy, settle in, and let's dive into Big Sky Country's wildest stories. When animals rule the 406. All right, buckle up. Before Evel Knievel was vaulting over buses and courting chaos on national TV, he was just Bobby Knievel, a scrappy kid from Butte with a head full of dreams and a helmet full of, well, cobwebs. Legend has it he got his start at the old Granite Street Fairgrounds, where half the town turned out to watch this lanky daredevil in training attempt his first official stunt, clearing a pit full of rattlesnakes and a couple of cougars borrowed, with questionable permission, from the local zoo. He rolled in on his beat-up Triumph, so rusty you'd swear it rattled more than the snakes themselves, and the crowd erupted. Mama Knievel tried to wave him off, hollering, "Bobby, don't you be crazier than a wet hen." But Bobby had stars in his eyes, and maybe a little moonshine in his fuel tank. At the starting line, the snakes coiled angrily, the cougars paced like they were late for dinner, and the announcer shouted, "If he lands this, he's a hero. If he misses, well, at least he'll make a mighty fine scarecrow." He roars across the dirt, takes off, and for a glorious split second, he's airborne, like a bat out of Harlowton, before gravity reminds him it's not a fan of show-offs. He lands harder than a bull moose on mating season, skids through the snake pit like a lawnmower on overdrive, and finally rolls out, bruised, dusty, and somehow still grinning. They said that Pitt looked more like a blender set to extreme, and yet young Bobby popped up, dusted off his leather jacket, spit out a mouthful of dirt, and yelled, "Was that it?" Only in Montana does a failed snake and cougar leap become a hometown legend. That day, he didn't just clear a pit, he earned the respect of Butte. Because if you can scare off snakes and cougars, you can scare off anything, like Monday mornings and those tax forms nobody wants to fill out. And thus, the world's greatest stuntman got his start under Big Sky Country's watchful peaks. Even old Bigfoot's impressed, though if I tried that stunt, I'd probably clear more trees than a landing strip. Stay tuned for more wild tales. Next up, cows that took on a freight train. All right, y'all, saddle up for this one, because out here in the wide open spaces east of the Continental Divide, the locals don't just raise cattle, they raise legends. They say back in the roaring 20s, a lone freight train snaked its way through prairie country near Miles City, pulling boxcars loaded with grain, lumber, maybe even a surprise consignment of county fair pies. But that day, it wasn't the engineers calling the shots. A herd of scrappy Herefords, rumor has it these weren't your run-of-the-mill barnyard gals, but a group of rowdy escapees, got restless. Maybe it was the promise of greener grass on the other side of the tracks. Maybe they were in a bovine mood for mischief. Either way, these cows decided to take matters into their own hooves. Picture this. A line of 8 or 10 full-grown cows hoofing it straight toward the rails, heads down, tails streaming like battle flags. The engineer spots them at the last possible second, slams on the brakes, and the whole train shudders to a halt, metal screeches, sparks fly, and the passengers probably thought World War III had broken out on the prairie. And then, bam! Those bovine bandits charge the front cars, bodies slamming into steel like a runaway locomotive themselves. One cow sideswipes a boxcar so hard, it dents the plate like a cowboy's belt buckle under a rowdy swing. Another tosses her head, sends the engineer's hat flying into the dirt. The train's stuck fast, immobilized by the only force capable of taming a roaring engine out here. Montana beef with an attitude. Now there are no official newspaper clippings. This was long before the town had a proper press. But ask any old-timer sipping huckleberry moonshine at the Miles City Saloon, and they'll point to the tracks and say, "Yep, that's where the cows taught that train a lesson." They even coined a phrase, "never bet against beef." The tale goes that the train crew, humiliated but unharmed, had no choice but to wait for ranch hands to wrangle those cows back into the pasture, hands that reportedly tipped their hats and muttered, "We'd have done the same thing." Meanwhile, the cattle strutted off like champions, tails high, as if to say, "Don't mess with Montana's finest." I tried to race that train myself once, but I got stuck in second gear, and a thorn bush. So next time you're standing by the tracks and you hear that familiar clackety-clack, remember? Out here, it ain't just steel on steel. It's a test of wills between man, machine, and mighty moo. And around here, the moo usually wins. Stick around, folks. Up next, the infamous Whiskey Bear of Missoula, who taught bartenders why shots should be for humans only. Need shipping, shredding, prints, or a real street address? Helena's locally owned and operated the UPS store has you covered. Packing experts, mailbox services, notary, print. Located at 2047 North Last Chance Gulch. Stop by and get it done right. Now, if you think you've seen a patron knock back too many, wait till you hear about the original party animal of Missoula, the Whiskey Bear. It was 1893, and the Silver Spur Saloon was the kind of joint where reputations were made over a shot glass and a hearty handshake. One evening, the barkeep, a fellow named Hank Two Fingers McAllister, noticed a hulking black bear lumbering in through the back entrance, nose twitching like he was tracking down his next snack. Hank, ever the sport, figured he was dealing with a lost zoo exhibitor. So he filled a shot glass with his finest rotgut whiskey, a blend so potent it'd peel paint off a barn door, and set it on the bar. The bear, with the manners of a seasoned tippler, reached out a massive paw, gave that glass a gentle nudge, and proceeded to knock it back in one smooth gulp. The crowd went silent, except for one cowboy who whispered, "Well, I'll be damned, he's got better aim than me." But that was only the beginning. The Whiskey Bear wanted more. With surprising dexterity, he pawed at the tap, turning the spigot until ale and whiskey spilled like a miniature waterfall across the bar. Customers scattered. Some ducked under tables, others sprinted for the exit, leaving Hank to play bartender to the rowdiest customer this side of the Rockies. Picture it, a 40-point black bear standing on hind legs, one paw on the counter, the other dangling a cigar as if he owned the place. He knocked back shot after shot, each one followed by a contented belch that rattled the windows. Finally, after downing what Hank later estimated as 24 shots, our furry friend decided it was time to call it a night. He tipped his invisible hat, well, you know, in bear terms, ambled out the door and disappeared into the moonlit mountains, leaving behind a mess of broken stools and the town's best bar story for generations. After that night, the Silver Spur tried everything to keep bears out. Barbed wire fences, guard dogs, even a "no pause at the bar" sign. But none worked. They say once you've hosted the Whiskey Bear, every other bouncer seems underpaid. I'd love to grab a barrel-aged cold brew with that bear and trade brewing secrets. But let's be honest, he'd slam his in one gulp and leave me wondering where I went wrong. So next time you're nursing a hangover and blame it on your wild night, just be grateful you weren't a bear in a Missoula saloon. Stay tuned, folks. Up next, the time a moose went grocery shopping at Safeway. Ready for your next Montana home? Visit mostwantedrealestate.net, because that's how the West is sold. All right, friends. Next up is the tale of the boldest shopper this side of the Rockies, the moose who went full-on consumer at the Safeway in Hamilton. Now, we've all seen deer nibble on flower beds, but nobody expects a bull moose to breeze through the automatic doors like he's picking up a loaf of sourdough. It was a chilly autumn morning, leaves crunching underfoot, when Marvin the moose, named by the first brave soul who snapped his picture, strode through the front entrance. His antlers barely topped the doorway, so he ducked just enough to avoid scraping the paint. Shoppers froze mid-brows, cognitive dissonance in full effect. Is that a moose in produce? Marvin wasn't there to cause a ruckus. Oh, no. He had his eye on the prize, the crisp, dewy apples by the front display. With one deliberate stomp, he knocked down an apple, inspected it like a connoisseur, then lobbed it into his mouth. The crunch echoed like thunder in aisle 3. Employees sprang into action. Manager Linda, known for her quick thinking, grabbed a broom and gently herded Marvin away from the deli counter before he could sample the smoked salmon. I gotta hand it to Marvin. He respected the no antlers on the bread sign, but clearly ignored the no moose in the store rule. He even paused at checkout, as if weighing whether to ring himself up. After a leisurely 5-minute tour, Marvin's curiosity waned, and he lumbered back toward the exit. But just as he reached the automatic doors, they slammed shut. Safety sensors tripped by a stray shopping bag. Panicked, Marvin gave a rapid headshake, almost tipping over the cardboard display of granola bars. Manager Linda hit hold on the controls. The doors clicked open, and Marvin exited with the grace of a lumbering sedan. Witnesses say he paused on the sidewalk, gave one last look back, like he was saying, "Don't restock the apples just yet," then stomped off into the timber, leaving behind a half-eaten apple, 2 chewed end caps, and a story that'll keep Safeway staff on their toes for decades. I tried shopping on my own once, but the self-checkout flagged my extra-large footprints in the flower aisle as unscanned items. So next time you gripe about crowded stores or long lines, just be glad your biggest worry is a fellow shopper with a full cart. In the 406, you might just elbow a moose out of the produce section. Coming up, half a dozen trained circus bears running wild through Billings. Trust me, you don't want to miss that one. This episode's powered by Outlaw Gear, where rebels get their style. Want to look legendary? Mosey over to I'mAnOutlaw.com and claim your outlaw status. Picture this. It's a crisp spring evening in early 1905, and the traveling Barnum and Bailey's circus has rolled into Billings. They've got acrobats, clowns, and a lineup of trained black bears, though as you'll see, they weren't trained for this. As the crowd packs Main Street, one curious bear gives his cage's latch a determined tug. Clink, click, clank, and bam! 6 furry escape artists tumble into the street like oversized tumbleweeds. The ringmaster blows his whistle, but it's too late. Pandemonium erupts. First, a bear plows into a stack of garbage barrels, and trash flies everywhere. Old boots, hickory-smoked bacon rinds, you name it. Folks scream, ducks dive for cover, and every dog in Billings launches a full-scale barkathon. One particularly bold Bruin sniffs out a nearby brewery, bursts in through the back door, and proceeds to chug fermented barley like it's happy hour, for free. Kegs tremble, barflies cheer, and half the saloon's glasses shatter in the scramble. They say the bear bait cocktail was invented that night, just a shot of whiskey with a side of caution tape. By midnight, the Billings Police Department, local ranch hands, and even a few disgruntled circus clowns corral those critters one by one. They lured the last bear out of a bakery with fresh doughnuts, sparklier than any carnival light. The whole affair made next morning's headlines: 6 bears, 0 cages, 1 town's worth of broken dreams. I tried that trick once, escaped my own shadow, but I got tangled in my fur and needed my mom to pull me free. And that, friends, is how Billings learned never to underestimate the cunning of a hungry bear, or a mischievous one. That's all for part 1 of our wild ride through Big Sky Country's wildest stories. We've met Evel Knievel's snake and cougar crash, witnessed cows schooling a freight train, survived the Whiskey Bear's bar tab, shopped Safeway with Marvin the moose, and chased circus bears through Billings. Next time, we'll dive into even more outrageously true Montana mayhem: courteous bears on the rails, a dog who ran for mayor, a whiskey-stealing horse, a cat that stole the rodeo crown, and an outhouse that learned to fly. If you're loving these tales, do us a favor. Give us a 5-star rating, share with your friends, and head to the 406life.com for bonus content on everything we've covered so far. Till then, keep the big sky in your heart and your sense of humor at the ready. See you on the other side of the divide. Got a Montana story, business, or unsolved mystery you want on the show? Head to the 406life.com and drop me a line. No smoke signals required. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss a stomp, stumble, or tall tale. Tell your friends, tell your grandma, heck, tell that guy who swears he saw me near Whitefish. I was just buying doughnuts, all right? Until next time, keep it outrageous, keep it kind, and keep living the 406 life. Montana Max, over and out.
That's the